On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with Robert Fiveash about why it's important to give back and why we need to listen to introverts. Hey there, and welcome to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I'm your host, Kirby Hasseman, and with me is a brand new guest. I'm super excited about this. That's right. Hey, Robert Fiveash, who's co-president and co-founder of Brand Fuel. He's also president of the board of Promo Kitchen. Robert, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Kirby, it is an absolute pleasure. Thank you, man. I'm excited.
Well, I am excited to dig into a few of these questions, and I want to get right to it because one of the things I mentioned there is you're like president, Promo Kitchen chef, grand poobah of the board, I think was the title I used. So yeah, I have to think, and in the interest of disclosure, I'm on that, but I'm not grand poobah. And so that must be a pretty huge commitment. So why do you do it? Why do you think it's important?
Well, that's a good question. I appreciate you asking it. So, I'm going to get a little bit deep here, but you and we and others of us who are listening to this, we're really fortunate. We were born in a place that allowed us to build our businesses in a fashion that we've done. It's allowed us to. We've had family that's been supportive. We've had schools that have been supportive. We've had an industry that's been supportive, and it's not like that everywhere. And so, I think you really do have to find a way to give back. And to me, it's not necessarily whether you're going to give back; it's how you're going to give back. And so, for me, Promo Kitchen was the obvious choice. I mean, I've done some things outside the community that are really important to me, but inside the community, Promo Kitchen really spoke to me, and not only because I've been in business for close to 20 years and I know how hard it is to bring on new people, right? I mean, this is a difficult industry, and so the idea of thinking that a new supplier or a new distributor is going to get it immediately it's just a fallacy. And so the idea of this all-volunteer organization that could help these folks really spoke to me. So that's really where it came from.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy of mention, right? Because you and I know it, but Promo Kitchen, there's two tenets, right? So it's mentorship and it's education. So we actually pair people who have been in the industry for a while with people who are new to the industry, and that's, I think your interest in the organization is super similar to mine. It was just one of those where I'm like, gosh, this just makes sense, and I think it's a cool thing that Promo Kitchen does. So I appreciate you doing that leadership.
Well, I really do appreciate it, and appreciate you saying that. And the opportunity for me to get more involved really came, I guess, about a year and a half ago when Mark Graham, who we all know and has been just a absolute driving force in the organization and in the industry for that matter. But Mark is a phenomenal leader, and Mark is someone who, as we know, started and co-founded commonsku, and so his schedule got a little bit full, let's say. And so he had the foresight to realize that this organization needed to be able to move beyond Mark Graham. As good as he is and as fantastic a leader as he is, the key is that this fantastic organization needs continuity. And so I think he was really smart in the way that he encouraged folks to step up. And so for me, there was an opportunity to become more involved, and from his perspective, I think he realized that, hey, these are volunteers. These are people who are not getting paid to do what they do. They have full-time jobs. They get paid for that. They don't get paid for their volunteerism, but you have to find a way to compensate, so to speak, these volunteers. And one of the ways to do that is to allow them to grow and to allow them to lead and to achieve. And I think Mark was brilliant, and leaders that see that in an organization that allow folks to grow and to breathe and to become the next generation of leaders. I think he was really prescient in that, and I give him a lot of props for that. I think it's very smart.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You talk about growth, And you and I have discussed at times that you are a little bit more of an introvert. It's actually probably one of the reasons that you haven't been on this show before, because you've told me that. So I think sometimes those kind of introverted personalities get overlooked. Why do you think it's important that we make sure that everybody at the table in our industry is talking?
That's a great question. I think the main reason, and kind of the obvious reason, is that any time that you've got half of a population of any organization that's not necessarily out there and contributing and leading, that's a colossal waste of talent and knowledge. And so, as you may or may not know, probably 50% of folks that are in our industry, or really in any industry, they have massive fear of public speaking. And that's not the same as being an introvert. They're different things. But I think in our industry, we are so enamored by the folks who are really comfortable out there on stage and are blogging and all over social media, and the things that you do so well with your what you're doing here, and so there's this sense that unless you're really out there promoting your business or promoting educational content or what have you, that you're kind of missing the boat, and I think that's probably true. I think you have to find that area where you're able to contribute, and it may not be public speaking. For me personally, I don't always follow my own advice. But the advice would be, what you do people see when you're out there engaging the community? And for me, I'm constantly, critiquing the me that's out there, engaging the community, and the engagement that I take part in, typically, whether it may be helping lead Promo Kitchen, but it's also getting out there and speaking. And so the challenge with that is, if you're not a great public speaker, yes, I think you probably can get better with practice, but what is the you that people are seeing, right? Yeah. So for me, when I'm out there, my brain turns to mush. I'm having to really memorize everything. I'm very robotic, very serious, and that's the me that people see, and that's the me that people understand. Robert Fiveash is, and so my thought would be, yes, you can go to Toastmasters, and yes, you can practice and all that kind of stuff, but you really probably are part of that 50% that has a real fear of it. And you may be part of that 10% that truly has, I think they call them glossophobics. They have true nausea and lightheadedness and just absolute dread about getting out there in front of folks. And so my thought is, you don't have to speak. You don't have to get out there in front of 1,000 people, but you got to do something. And that might be being a mentor for Promo Kitchen. It may be writing an article. Some people that are really not so great at public speaking are amazing at writing, and you may have as much smarts in your head and great ideas in your head as all of these amazing people that you and Bobby and Danny and Mark and these guys that we all appreciate as great public speakers. If you can't get that out there, if it can't come from here out your mouth, have it come out of your pen or somewhere else, but get it out there. Don't sit on the sidelines, and that would be my suggestion. But yes, I think there are a lot of introverts in our industry. You look out at a crowd of 1,000 people, and 500 of them are introverts. These folks need to get out and lead, and it's a real waste of talent and knowledge if they don't. So find your muse and find your portal and make it happen.
No, and I appreciate that coming, again, from you who has said, look, I struggle with this. And so I appreciate you kind of leading the charge in that way. So one thing I know about you, and this is my final question for you, is I know that you have created a successful partnership in the promo business. And look, that's hard, right? Having partnerships that are successful, that's hard. So what are some tips you can give people about creating successful partnerships?
Good question. So my business partner, Danny Rosen, and I have been in business for almost 20 years. I think in February of next year, it'll be 20 years, which is just astounding. So I'll answer that with kind of a sort of a musical anecdote. So music and live music especially, but is really kind of part of my DNA and Danny's DNA and our company's DNA. And so I'll answer that by just a quick story with some of my favorite bands of all time. So these are, the Stones and Pink Floyd and the Ramones and the Clash and this amazing band called Drive-By Truckers, kind of my favorite band over the last 20 years. And these bands, they're partnerships, right? Mm-hmm. And so you think of Pink Floyd, you've got David Gilmour and Roger Waters and the battles that they had over control of lyrics and things like that. And the Stones, you've got Mick and Keith. I mean, Keith used to wear this T-shirt on stage, who the F is Mick Jagger, right? I mean, that's what his T-shirt said, which is just so interesting. And he writes this book, this autobiography, and talks about Jagger's anatomy and, disparaging ways. I mean, it's really kind of rough, right? But these are partnerships that are either finding a way or not finding a way to succeed. And the Ramones and the Clash, I mean, just lots of backbiting. And then you look at a band like the Drive-By Truckers, who have been around for close to 25 years now and are really run by a guy named Patterson Hood, a guy named Mike Cooley. They're kind of the two core pieces of it. And they had a guy in the band for about 5 years that we're all starting to hear about, a guy named Jason Isbell. And Jason was in the band for probably the 3 albums that most fans would say were their best 3 albums. Okay. And I'll answer your question by the first thing I want to say is giving credit where credit is due. Like, what makes a successful partnership? Giving credit where credit is due. So here's this young chubby kid who's 21 years old that these 30-year-old owners of this brand, Drive-By Truckers, bring into the band. They let him breathe. They let him do his thing. The band, which one thing that's just phenomenal, you hear of like Jagger Richards and all these different folks who wrote songs. For the Drive-By Truckers, they had Cooley / Drive-By Truckers, meaning the artist was attributed the writing credit and the whole band was attributed the musical credit. Mm-hmm. So giving credit where credit is due. So so one partner brings in this idea. Well, you know what? The entire company or the other partner kind of massaged it and made it better. And so it's astounding. If you look at these different bands and which bands made it and which didn't, giving credit where credit is due is probably the biggest thing for partnerships. The other piece of it is letting your partner breathe and grow and encouraging that growth. Your 2 partners or 3 or whatever, you're not necessarily going to be on the exact same path all the time. And you may veer this way and he or she may veer that way, but giving that person the confidence to do that and encouraging them, I think is fantastic. And you never know where that divergent road is going to be. I mean, your business needs to reinvent itself. It needs new DNA. And so there's nothing wrong with encouraging your business partner to try new things and go off in a different direction. The other 2 things I would just say real quickly, Kirby, separate your duties well for efficiency and also accountability. That's one of the biggest things in our business. We've got this plan that we call RACI, and RACI stands for who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed. And it allows us to, much better than we did before, allows us to, each of us, grab a hold of a different piece of the business and really concentrate on that. Because I think one of the biggest challenges in our world is that we're kind of all over the place. And this, if perhaps you have ADD already, this business does not make that any easier. With all of the emails and all of the social media and all the just you know how it is, man. And so you really do have to separate those things to be successful. And accountability is huge. I mean, one of the biggest challenges frankly, that I have, that Danny and I have together as partners, is we've been friends for 40 years. And, how do you hold your best friend accountable? Like that's tough, right? Yeah. And it's how much do you get all over, how much do you have to do that? And it's like a marriage, right? I mean, are you going to come home and have a real issue with your wife, or do you let it go, right? I mean, let the little things go. That's probably the last thing. And so anyway, having a partnership is certainly not easy. It is one of the most challenging and most rewarding things that you can do. Hence the reason why so many people get married. I mean, there's so many benefits to it and so many challenges to it. But when it works and when you put your heart and soul into it and you really try, that's the key. You got to really try every day, and you can't give up. When you really do that, it can be one of the most rewarding things that you have. And for me, a 20-year relationship with my business partner, Danny, is one of the things that I value the absolute most in my life. And so you've got to work hard at it. And if you do that, you're gonna find a lot of joy in it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, man, you've answered my 3 questions. I appreciate that. Now give everybody a chance to ask me one. Do you have one for me?
I do. So, I mentioned that we sort of live in this ADD world, not only in our world, but especially in the promo world. There's just something about it that we're all wearing a million hats. I feel like I'm underwater all the time. I know you are a super busy guy, certainly as busy as I am. Yet, you have found a way to launch this brand new business, this brewery, and I'm just astounded at the fact that you've bitten that off, and you're I'm sure you'll be really successful at it. But my question is, what have you done in your work world, whether it's delegation or RACI or any of the things that you've done to build this ecosystem around you that allows you to have your business continue as well as it's doing, yet be able to put as much time and effort and love and sweat and energy and mojo as it's going to take to make your brewery successful? Like, what have you done to build that ecosystem that allows you that time? Because I could learn from that.
Well, thank you. That's super nice. Not only because that you're saying those kind words, but that you believe I have figured it out. That's really cool. No, it's something, honestly, Robert, that I'm struggling with every day. Now, the first thing I would say is it's super important to have a great support team. I think I get a lot of credit for these videos. I've got a guy here, Dustin, who helps me put those together. We've got an entire support team, including my assistant, Emily, who helps me book stuff. Emily's job, she didn't know it when she started, is now starting to order ingredients for a brewery. So it's like I've got this team of people. We've hired a brewer, and it's about getting those people on the right, as Jim Collins says, the right people on the right seat on the bus.
There you go.
But candidly, I think that's something that literally I'm still working on every day, because then I'm still trying to balance not missing soccer games and still having a life outside of it. And so, I would say it's a work in progress. I would be disingenuous if I sat up here and said, "Oh, well, this is how you do it," because I've got it all figured out. I'd be honest with you. This weekend, I felt a level of anxiety because I didn't feel like I had it all figured out. And then there are other days where I'm like, okay, I think I got it. But it really is about the people that surround you, and that's what I keep coming back to.
Well, I've got to say it's inspirational to me and many other folks that I've talked to about it. I'm a firm believer that we all have more capacity than we sort of are willing to give, and we just have to do it. And whether you're talking to Seth or anyone else out there that talks about publishing your work or shipping your work or however he describes it, I mean, you've found a way to do that twice here, and it's really impressive. And I think it is an inspiration to others who may feel bogged down or just can't find a way around this or that or whatever. There is a way.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being on the show. And we'll have to do it again, okay?
Would love to. Thanks.
All right. Well, that wraps up this edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. We'll see you next time.